This webinar is on budgeting and analytics. I'm Thomas Ironstone. I'm a business solutions consultant for Corporate Renaissance Group, and my area of focus is corporate performance management solutions. And my area of globe that I focus on is North America. So a little bit about Corporate Renaissance Group. We've been around since 1989. Our clients range in size, so they're small and large, from 5 million to 1+ billion in sales. We have a global team of seasoned technical and business professionals. We're headquartered in Ottawa, Canada. We have offices in the U.S., India, South Africa, and Hong Kong. Our customers are also located globally. As you can see, they're located through North America, the Caribbean, South America, UK, Africa, India, and Australia. So with Corporate Renaissance Group, we follow the Level 7 enterprise framework. We work to get our clients from Level 1 enterprises all the way up to Level 7, and Level 1 being sort of the foundation items such as the ERP systems, specialized solutions related to their ERP solutions. To get them up to the next levels, we focus on smart and disciplined management, which relates to collaboration, data to information. And today's webinar will actually be focusing on our budgeting and forecasting. But also, as a part of Corporate Renaissance Group, we also focus on strategic planning and value-based management through our consulting offerings. And here's just a high-level overview of our offerings. Today, we're just going to be focusing on budgeting and analytics. So we conducted a survey with some of our prospects in the budgeting and forecasting realm. With their current solutions, some pain points that they had historically had to do with budget process was lengthy. It was difficult automating the workflow. Also facilitating multi-contributor budgeting. It was very difficult to get multiple cost center managers involved and getting timely feedback. And also, with a prominent tool that's used for budgeting today is still Excel. You know, it's a very flexible product, but some issues with regard, it's flexible for small organizations, but it's not scalable once you get to larger, more complex budgets. And there's also some issues with broken formulas and references, because as you know, when you're working with multiple spreadsheets, multiple workbooks, if a formula or reference gets broken, it's difficult to track it down, figure out where it's coming from, and at the end of the day, you lose some integrity with your budget. Also, some challenges, some common budgeting pains for clients had to do with reforecasting. So the ability to, after they make their budget, to take that budget and do some reforecasting. It wasn't always so simple or complex or easy to do, and it tended, days or weeks to actually get done. Some nice to have that prospects had, but they're currently not doing just because they're perceived to be too complex, have to do with performing what-if scenarios. So say with their current budget, what happens if sales increases by 10% or certain operating expenses decrease by a certain percentage. They don't have that ability, but they just perceived it to be too complex to do just using Excel. And also performing driver-based budgeting, so whether that's using square footage to drive rent expense or maybe performing allocations, or also maybe using headcount to perform some personnel-related expenses, or maybe planning for even capital, such as the number of budgeting for the number of new laptops they may require for new employees that are being hired. Another perceived complexity that individuals had with their current budgeting process had to do with building out a balance sheet and cash flow that's tied to their budget. Typically, most companies tend to focus on the P&L side, but leave out the balance sheet and cash flow. At Corporate Renaissance Group, we have 3 solutions that we focus on for budgeting and planning. And we chose these 3 solutions based on providing a variety of options to our clients based on their size and need. So for more small clients, we tend to focus on Budget Maestro. It's a very comprehensive solution to budgeting, planning, and forecasting. It's an on-premise installation. It is GL focused, and so it's tied to the chart of accounts. And also out-of-the-box GL connector to multiple accounting systems, and also facilitates integrated income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow budgeting. We also offer Board, which is the solution that I'm going to be demonstrating today. It's an on-premise installation, primarily geared towards medium or large companies. It is a budgeting and planning forecasting solution. But also, this is a corporate performance management solution. So it does actually a lot more than just budgeting, planning, and forecasting. It has business intelligence and dashboards. You have the ability to actually build strategy maps and balanced scorecards. You can pull data from various data sources, and can also use this product for various other applications, whether it's supply chain management or anything. Board's a very flexible product, and it can be used for a lot more than just budgeting. And it's also just one product and one toolkit, so you're not necessarily buying multiple different products to do different items. So it's very scalable and can be pervasive throughout your organization. And another product that we also offer is Adaptive Planning. It's a cloud-based solution, and we adopted this one for medium to large-sized companies that are looking for a budgeting solution that they don't necessarily want an IT footprint. They just want something that's hosted and they don't have to worry about installations or upgrades or anything like that. So as I mentioned today, I'm going to be focusing on Board. It's an all-in-one product. So it has budgeting forecast abilities all in one solution. So that's really the Board value proposition. So it offers reporting, analysis and simulation, scorecarding and dashboarding, profitability modeling and optimization, financial consolidation and strategy management. And today we're going to be focusing on budgeting, planning, and forecasting. So the Board is really a true corporate performance management solution. Board's also one of only 5 companies that are positioned in the Gartner Magic Quadrants for both CPM, so corporate performance management, and business intelligence. Where Board stands out from those other companies is that Board is just one single product, one technology, one toolkit. The other companies, they are in both quadrants, but they're composed of multiple different products and applications. Board is used globally. It's a variety of different industries and size of companies. So as I mentioned, this product can be used for a variety of different applications. So it's a very flexible product, and it's been adopted by customers globally. In the BI survey, Board was actually ranked #1 in ease of use compared to other industry leaders. And as you'll see, Board's a very simple to use product, drag and drop, so it's very business user centric. So it's not designed for IT to manage and control. It's really designed for business users to be able to develop their applications, such as budgeting and forecasting applications, and be able to maintain them on their own. So with solutions such as corporate performance management solutions, this is typically a good diagram to show where the turning point is typically when organizations and companies tend to look at these types of products. As you can see with this graph, we have the y-axis, which is competitiveness, and the x-axis, which is cumulative investment. So up to a certain point, most organizations focus on sort of more process efficiency investments, and it adds some incremental improvements to competitiveness, but at some point it plateaus. And it's really at that turning point when organizations start looking at budgeting, forecasting, corporate management solutions, and business intelligence solutions, because they really want to focus more on decision effectiveness, looking at how to make themselves more competitive. So a common challenge with organizations in the budgeting and forecasting realm is actually linking strategy with operations. So as you know, strategy feeds planning and forecasting, which then feeds operations from an execution and control perspective, and then back into, say, our planning and forecasting process. So that's where we come to a product like Board, which takes all of these different items and allows an organization to perform all these functions with one product and have all that data there in one solution. So that's sort of the thought process with how Board was developed. It was developed to be an all-in-one BI and CPM solution. So you can pull your data from various data sources, whether it's from your ERP system, your CRM, legacy systems, whether you have data in data warehouses or relational databases. You might have them even in flat files and for text files that you may be leveraging for data that you want to be able to use in your budgeting and planning forecast. So Board takes all of this data, pulls it into a system, and then you can use it for business intelligence, whether it's scorecarding, dashboarding, reporting, and analysis, performance management, whether it's budgeting, planning, and forecasting, strategy management, financial consolidation, profitability analytics, or even analytics solutions such as supply chain management, operations analytics, finance, sales, HR. With this one solution, you get it all. And here's a sort of a lay of the land of Board. As I mentioned, Board can connect to multiple data sources and pull all the data into its system. You can use Board for reporting, analysis, alerting. You can use Board from a strategy level for strategy mapping, scorecarding, creating dashboards and KPIs. And then even take that information from your strategy process and even feed it into your budgeting and planning functionality. So say you want to build out budgets, forecasts, planning, you can do what-if scenarios in Board. Board also facilitates financial consolidation. And in Board, you can also design your own workflows. So that's going through the process of who your budget contributors are, what data you need for them. You can control that process and design even a workflow which the budgeting process revolves around. Board also has a very tight Microsoft Office, so it's into Excel, Word, and PowerPoint. So you can actually push Board dashboards and reports out to Excel, Word, PowerPoint. But even in Excel, you can use it as a data entry tool, which actually can write back directly into the Board database, which I'll demonstrate for you today. Board has a broad broadcasting capability, so you can push and pull reports by email, web, Microsoft Office to mobile apps. And also, it has a rapid deployment, because as I mentioned earlier, this is designed to be a business user tool, so it's programming free, and it's all done through drag and drop, and it's designed to make users self-sufficient. And all of that's powered through Board's Toolkit Approach, so it is one product. You're not learning new applications, you're just learning the same toolkit, and you use it for different functions, whether it's for budgeting, planning, and forecasting, or for developing strategy maps, or use it for dashboarding and reporting. You're using the same toolkit all the time, so the users become very comfortable with how it functions and what they can use it for. And I'll demonstrate for you today. Board's highly visual. It has feature-rich content that's delivered from a single interface with its drag-and-drop environment without complex coding. Board also offers drill-down capabilities, so if you have data at a high level, you can drill down from those reports into more granular detail to do some investigative work on where those results are coming from. As I mentioned, Board also has Microsoft Office integration. So with Excel, you can use it as an input template, or you can even just use the Board interface. You have some flexibility there for when you actually deploy a budget. And it's also integrated with PowerPoint and Word, so if you want to actually push out reports or a chart that you built in Board out to PowerPoint or Word, and you can actually just refresh it at time to time directly from PowerPoint or Word to actually get updated data. Creating different Board reports or annual reports, you'll be able to put these charts into the document and have them refreshed as opposed to having to recreate them every time. Board also has a sophisticated business process management, so it allows the users to customize their own workflow for, say, a budgeting process. So going through collecting the budget, getting inputs, going through an approval process, you can actually design this in Board. Board also offers simulation and version control. So if you want to create multiple versions of your budget, so that's what I mentioned earlier. And this is one of the complex things that clients before, when they're doing their budgeting forecasting process, they want to be able to do some what-if scenarios. Board makes that process easy, so you can actually create new versions of your budgets and do some scenarios and actually see what your budget would look like under different scenarios. Another one of those nice-to-haves that some clients had issues with before adopting a budgeting solution was driver-based planning. So that's using drivers such as price and cost by quantity to be able to fill out their revenue forecast, or maybe from a personnel planning process to be able to set up employee drivers such as maybe employee grades or even the employee benefit percentages and tie it to different regions, so to be able to use those as drivers for building out your personnel-related budget. And then also another example here would be capital expenditure drivers. So whether it's using different depreciation methods, asset life, you can use Board to actually set up these drivers and use it to fill out your budget templates. And another one of those nice-to-haves that I mentioned earlier in that survey that we did with some budgeting prospects was the ability to integrate P&L, balance sheet, and cash flow. Because Board's storing this all in one database, you're able to connect this data and actually build out cash flow calculations and build out your cash flow statement and even build out your balance sheet. So you can have a budget view of these other financial statements, which prospects weren't typically able to do historically. Next, Board actually has very sophisticated functionality for modeling, and one particular aspect that I really like about it is the ability to put in a value at, say, the year level and then have it distribute down to, say, months. So Board has the standard breakback data entry, so if you want to just put data in at an annual level, then it can then distribute it down to the month level. But then it actually gets even more sophisticated because, say, if you actually want to budget from maybe a customer and product level, Board may populate it at a high level and then maybe allocate a budget for revenues for a particular channel and product class. Then you can have that allocate down to specific customers and products, so then you can have a very detailed budget at the end of the day. But again, that's if you want to get to another level of complexity, Board will allow you to do that, but you can also keep it as simple as you want. Again, for those companies that are doing their budgeting in Excel, common pain point is having complex formulas, and when a reference breaks or a formula is referencing another page or another workbook that maybe you don't have control over, there's just all sorts of integrity issues. The Board actually allows you to take these complex referential Excel formulas and replace them with simple logical calculation steps within the application. And it's non-code based, so it's designed for business users. Out of the box, Board understands the concept of time that I mentioned very well, so it can offer a variety of time-related calculations in a dynamic fashion without further coding or programming. Also from broadcasting and learning, out of the box, Board can interface directly with your email environment, so that's where you can have alerts and actually push reports out to individuals and actually pull people into the Board system based on alerts as well. So it can actually drive a very dynamic budgeting process, and then when down at the operational level, can actually engage individuals from a control perspective. If a certain value falls out of a certain benchmark, it then can drive individuals to the Board application to be able to act upon that information. Board also offers reporting books, so it gives you the ability to create custom reporting books with predefined filters and content, and it's also coupled with suitable page workflow. Applications regarding disclosure management are also possible. Board, in addition to storing data like financial figures, can also store text, comments, and images, which you can actually pull into the Board system. So say if you want to build out a little portal within your budgeting process to have, say, individual pictures stored, you can actually do that as well. But say from an even more practical perspective, you can store documents such as invoices or contracts tied to certain figures that are supporting documents for your budget. So you can actually store them and tie them to certain data points within Board. Board has a rich data modeling capability. With its feature-rich data modeling environment, has built-in sparsity management for Board cubes. So this really just means no coding is required when you're building out a Board database. It's all designed to be very visual and designed for business users to understand, and obviously keep them away from having to do any coding or scripting. And again, Board has rich data connectivity capabilities, so you can align Board with various data sources and bring it into Board's multi-dimensional environment. We're going to actually dive into the product so you can see what it looks like, what the look and feel is. I'm just going to take you through 2 examples. The first example I'm going to show you is going to be a revenue budget workflow example that's designed in Board, and also a personnel and operating expense budget example that's designed in Board as well. So these are just samples. So for any given company, they could have their own completely different structure or the way it looks and feels. Board is designed to be very flexible in that way, and that you can design it to how you best want to see the world. So what we're seeing here is just a workflow example from revenue budgeting. So again, this is just a sample. Your flow could look completely different. This is just looking at a particular budget cycle. So it's looking at the different data inputs where the company may be getting data from, who they're getting it from, who's reviewing it, and who's signing off. So it just controls that whole process. So going through this process with our clients, typically a good first step here is to have them document and design their workflow so they understand what the data inputs that they need from the budgeting process, who are they actually getting that data from, and who's going to be reviewing and signing off on those budgets. So with this particular example here, just going through setting up a preliminary budget, so the base budget, and then going through some fine-tuning to that budget. So from this revenue budgeting cycle, you'd be going to different sales managers and getting them to further refine their budget by product and customer, for example. And then it goes through an approval process, so their managers will sign off or reject that budget if some updates are needed. And they can also do some adjustments on top of that. And then at the end of the day, do some reporting and analytics to see how their sales team are doing against budget. I'm just going to start at this preliminary budget step here. So this is just looking at a data input sheet. Your data input sheet could look completely different, but this is just giving you an example of what one could do. So with this particular data input sheet for the base budget, what we have is our different customer channels, and then these are different sales reps. And then we have our budgets for those different sales reps within that channel. So next to that, we provide historical data, so our previous year sales, just to give them an idea on what that base budget could look like. So I'm able to actually go in here and make some changes to this budget if I want to. And then as you see here, it's in red. So it hasn't actually done the data right back yet until I hit accept. And then it actually gets written back to the Board database and saved. So within Board, you can create some procedures to say, populate the current year budget to be equal to the previous year sales. And you just click the button and then it populates it. Or maybe you might want to say, let's populate the current budget based on last year plus 10%. Just because we want to use that as our starting point based on our own information of our company and how we perceive our current environment to be changing for this upcoming budget cycle. So then an individual can go in and make some updates to this. So say for a particular sales rep, we're looking at 289,000, but maybe a more aggressive target for them would be 300,000. And then we'll come down to say Lawrence down here. That 279 might be a bit too high. Maybe he lost some customers in that particular channel. So let's say maybe 200,000 might be more of a reasonable budget for him. We click accept, and then it writes back to the Board database. Now, as I mentioned, Board has tight-knit integration with Microsoft Office. So rather than driving individuals to the board interface to be doing their data input, they might be more comfortable doing their budget contributions through an Excel spreadsheet. And that's what a lot of companies are doing today, and maybe that's what they want to stick with. So what I can actually do is, after designing this particular budget template, I can export this template to Excel. And as you'll see here, it'll populate that same input template, which looks identical to what we're seeing here on board. So we have our prior year quantities and our current budget quantities. And these cells are protected for the prior year quantities because these aren't data entry enabled, so I can't go in here and say type in 2,000. It actually goes back and rewrites the correct amount. So it doesn't allow me to enter on the previous year quantities, but it actually will allow me to go in and write as a manager when I'm going through and inputting my budget figures. I can actually just go into Excel, update this budget, and I'm just going to actually make all these 200,000 just for illustration purposes so you can see the change. It's green because change has been made. And then I can connect to board. So it's connecting to the board database. And I click Save. So as you see here, the 200,000, I'm going to go back to board. I just have to hit refresh. And you see all those 200,000? It's been actually written back to the database. So you actually have some flexibility on how you want to drive collaboration in the budgeting process, who's involved, what data that you need them to contribute, and what method that you want them to use to be able to contribute into the budget. So whether it's through the board interface or through Excel templates, board provides that flexibility. So next, we're sticking with this budget flow process. So after going through and, say, defining a base budget by sales rep for particular customer channels, I could then, say, go to refining that budget down at the product and customer level. So here we're looking at the salesperson named Brian. It's populating all of this data. So as you saw, we had populated data at just the customer and channel level, but now it's actually allocated it down to different products under that. The board actually facilitated that allocation for you. So again, you don't have to get that detailed depending on how much level of complexity and detail you want in your budget. You could also just keep it at a very high level. Now just to sort of illustrate some of the functionality with this, as you see for Brian, he has sales within watches for different products within that product class. So aviator men's, aviator women's, chrono alarm timer. So we can actually go in here and make updates to that budget to further refine it. So one way I can just come in, so it's showing our previous year sales here. I could say 579 is a little low. Let's make that up to 600. Hit accept. And as you saw, it actually updated the delta, which is the change from the previous year. And then there's the delta percent, which is the percent change from the budget versus the prior year. Now I could actually say, in putting a flat amount, and can maybe just put in the change that I want to see versus the prior year. And say if it's not 147, I want the change from prior year to be 200. If you saw that, board actually went and used its reverse algorithm to actually calculate it this way. So you saw that the budget amount went up to 653, which is 200 versus the prior year. I can accept that. Next, with this reverse algorithm functionality that board offers is, say, rather than inputting a dollar amount for the change, I could actually input a percentage change. So here I have 44%. Maybe let's make that a flat 50% growth I want to see. Hit enter. If you saw that, board actually now calculated the budget based on that 50%. So it's very flexible with regards to actually how you want to get the data input and how you want the calculations to be done. Board provides that functionality in a very flexible manner. Next, after you get the budget at the customer and product level, now maybe you want to allocate it down to customers from the annual budget down to a monthly budget. So what board's doing here is it's taking those values for each customer channel for a particular product class, and it's showing how those budgets would be allocated at a monthly level based on previous year's proportionate allocation. So for example here, if we look at for aviator women's watches, we see that we budgeted for retail stores 20,000. And what it did was it took that 20,000 and then board said, what was their prior year sales on a monthly basis for retail stores for aviator women's? And then it said, okay, let's allocate that out proportionally based on prior year sales. So you could do that, or you could actually just go into it and do your data entry flat here and say, I want this to be 2,000. I want this to be 500. So you can go flat right into the individual months and input it that way. And then when I'm done, I can hit accept. And then another thing that board does is I can actually go into this total, and you see the values here, and I can update this total to $7,000 for Aviator women's watch sales to cash and carry customers. I hit enter. Then board allocated it out proportionally to those different months based on the prior year sales. I could even go into a particular month here and say this is $3,000 in May, but really it should just be $2,000. And I can actually, I'm just going to accept that input. And then I can actually lock this particular cell. So this cell is grayed out, meaning I can't enter any data on it. And I can actually go into this month here, and let's make this $4,500. Once I hit enter, board's going to allocate it out to these other months, keeping a fixed amount of $2,000 in May. So I'm going to hit enter, and board facilitated that allocation. And then I can hit accept. So again, board can allow you to get very detailed in your budgeting process, and you can keep it as simple or as complex as you want to do. Next, after I refine my budget from a sales perspective, I can go in to see my final results and then maybe make some final updates and even add some comments. The board actually allows you the ability to add comments to your budget. So you can sort of defend the value. You know, as a sales rep, you made your budget, you refined it for particular customer channels and product classes. I can come in here and then I can edit this to say where that value came from. I just might say that I lost a customer this past year, but I am expecting to add a few more. So I can hit OK, and then it adds that comment directly to that cell. So going through the review process, you have some documentation to actually explain some of the figures and understand where those values are coming from as well. So now once Brian's done his budget, he can go through and hit submit. And I have that one pending data entry, so I can click yes. Now it's been submitted. So again, when we're going through our budget cycle, after we get our data input from different individuals, now we can actually go through and review and approve that budget. So as Brian's manager, I go to this approval cycle screen and say, okay, Brian submitted his budget. Here's his value. Here's the net amount, the net sales based on those units that he's planning on selling. I can go to Brian and say approve. And then once it's been approved, it's going to update here, give me a green flag that it's been approved. I can go and then broadcast that report out to Brian. So now he has his final budget for this upcoming year. Now at the end of the day, I can go through and after I've done my budgeting process, I could actually do some reforecasting to the budget that's been submitted. So say we had actuals that came in for January to March for the first 3 months. I could just say let's update the budget for the next following month. So board's easy interaction capabilities there. I just clicked on those months and it's updated everything on this data input screen. And then I can go in and do some reforecasting. So say outdoor sales based on what's happened to year to date. Maybe we actually got to up the percentage to 10%. That seems a little bit more likely. And then for fixed blade sales, maybe that's a bit too high based on the trend that we saw for the first 3 months. Let's update that to 7, hit accept, and then it's updated our budget value. Board's highly interactive here. So here we're looking at different product divisions. I can just interact with a particular report. So here I'm going to highlight product division C. So this is just a bar graph showing me the previous year sales, the budgeted sales, and the percent growth. So then I can just on this graph select that, and board's going to go through and filter everything out based on that particular item on that chart, which is pretty cool functionality from an interactive perspective. And then I can further refine that to say, okay, so we're focusing on product division C. We see our previous year sales were $10,400 and we're budgeting around $11,500. Maybe that's a bit too high. And I can come in here and make some updates accordingly. So let's change that down to 5, 5, and maybe 6. So you can sort of fiddle around with that and do some further refining from a reforecast perspective. So now after you've done some reforecasting, at the end of the day, you might want to actually do some reporting and see how your different sales reps are doing versus budget. So here we have our actual sales year to date for these different sales reps and the budgeted value, and you can see their variance versus budget. So you can see which individuals have exceeded budget, which individuals are below budget year to date. This is still very interactive, so I can focus on different, say, product groups. So I'm going to highlight sports, sunglasses, outdoor, and fashion, and it's going to update these reports. So I can see where the variance is even down at that level. And maybe I can look at a particular state as well, maybe California. and then I can review those selections if I want to get it back to the original state. If I want to click on Brian, I can click on Brian, and then it will filter, say, his product performance report, so I can see what his net sales are versus budget, and then the delta versus that. Then I can look at the sales trend, so I can see how they're doing month to month, what their budget value is, what their actual sales were, and maybe what their actual price is versus the budgeted price. And then, again, this is highly interactive, so I can select maybe a couple months and then filter the report for those couple months as well. And then finally, channel distribution. We might look at, say, cash and carry. We see that cash and carry is quite high, but department stores is low. Maybe let's find out what's going on with department stores. I highlight those, and I can look at the individual values. I say, oh, wait, a number of individuals are below budget here. Brian's below budget, which is maybe surprising, and then we can go back and do some reforecasting, or that might drive action to say, hey, Brian, what's going on in the department store sales this year versus last year? So it just gives you some ability to actually do some analytics, drive interaction in the budgeting process, which is a very unique process to board. I gave you an example of a revenue budgeting budget cycle. Now I'm going to show you an example of personnel and operating expense budgeting. And this is just going to be a very high-level example, just to give you an idea of what work can do. So here's an example of just another completely different workflow. As you saw with the revenue one, I had a circle. With this one, it could just be a straight flow diagram. So you can design your workflow to have it however you want it to be. And again, if you remember at the beginning, before I jumped into that revenue budget cycle, I said a few important things from designing your workflow is to sort of understand what are the data inputs, who are you getting that data from, and who reviews it and signs off. Those are some things that go into the budgeting process. So here when we're designing our workflow, we might say we might need data inputs from HR to get some compensation assumptions, and then that's going to feed into, say, the cost center managers to actually go and do their personnel budgeting when they have those initial assumptions that have already been set up by HR. And then that will feed into expenses and then into your P&L at the end of the day. So let's just start here. I'm just going to click on compensation assumptions. Say HR would come in here and input their different salary levels, their employee benefit percentages, employee tax and fringe percent, pension percent, say by different regions. Say be different drivers that HR would come in and update as a part of the budgeting process. So this would sort of be the first step. And again, this whole process could be completely customized to how your organization sees the world from a budgeting perspective. And it could be, say, a different flow, different data inputs, different drivers. It's all at the hands of the user to specify what data they want to collect drives the budgeting process. So say after HR comes in here and they update their different salary levels by employee grade and the employee benefits and they accept everything, the next step will be to say for the cost center managers, they'll come into their employee planning process and they'll select their different employees. They might select their appropriate employee pay grade. They can't control the salary. That's driven by their employee grade. And then they can do their annual planned merit increase. So here for Kettle, Claudel, it's 3%. But say this year we're actually going to do 5%. We can hit accept and then choose, say, the month that that increase is going to occur. So say it's May. And then you can maybe drill down to specific regions if you want as well. So it's very flexible with regards to how you collect inputs from your managers and the data that you want them to control and the data that you want them to see as a result at the end of the day. So that's just sort of a high-level example from, say, the employee planning perspective. Now after the selections have been made, maybe we add new employees. Say we're hiring new employees, we select their employee grade as well. We could do that. Then we can say, let's look at what those expenses will appear to be from a budgeting perspective on a monthly basis. So here we're looking at our phase salary costs, which were calculated based on our selections and our different inputs and the drivers that were set up by HR. We can look at the phase benefits to see how that looks like on a monthly basis, to see what the total amount is for the year, maybe the total amount by month. Maybe we want to filter on a particular region, A1, to see what the phase benefits look like on a monthly basis. Look at the pension, taxes, overtime and bonus, and then employee costs summary at the end of the day. So we see our salaries, benefits, pension, taxes, overtime, bonus on a monthly basis to see what those results look like. So now after we've gone through our employee planning process, The next step would say, let's go to actually the operating expense input. So here I'm going to click Expenses, and this is, say, looking at our other general and administrative expenses aside from salaries, such as telephone, travel, hotel and accommodations, office supplies, conferences, etc., that we want to actually collect from our cost center managers. So here, for example, we see we have our telephone expense, which is $100,000. And if we look over here, this is showing a monthly amount for telephone expense, so that amount can spread out on a monthly basis. Say I actually want to go in here, and let's say rather than this year, we actually got a really good deal on our telephone contract. I'm going to make this $80,000. I'm going to hit Accept, and then I'm going to say, let's spread that amount on a monthly basis to be flat. So in our agreement, our telephone expense is actually going to be flat on a monthly basis, so meaning it's going to be spread evenly. So as you saw that, I entered in $80,000. Over here, the total amount for the year updates to $80,000, and then it's been spread evenly. That's actually being driven by this data input sheet that I just added up here. And this is just to show different spread profiles or seasonality profiles that may impact expenses. And I can just use that to allocate it on a monthly basis. So this is just to give you another example on what Board can do, say, from a budget collection perspective, and then also for how you want that data allocated out at the end of the day. So say you just want your cost center managers to come in and put their amounts and then click a particular profile that they want it to be spread by. So another example of this, just to illustrate it, might be conferences. So say this year we plan on actually spending $50,000 on conferences. I can hit Accept. So it's been written to the Board database. And then let's actually spread that using our summer seasonality. So I'm going to hit that. So once that populates, we'll see this conferences line. It's higher in the summer months, and that's because it's being driven by this input template up top that specifies that spread seasonality. So that might be, say, it's in July, conference expenses are 20 times more than what it is in January. So I can actually go in and fiddle around with that. So say it's actually 40 times more. Hit Enter, Accept, and then I can come in here and then respread that. And then it's going to update that value here. Because as you saw, it went from around 16,000 to about 22,000. So you have some flexibility with regards to how you actually want to collect and then allocate that data out. So now after we go through, we collect our personnel planning budget and our operating expense budget. We want to see what it looks like, say, from a P&L perspective. Let's just look at our current budget. We can go and load in that sales budget from earlier. Let's load in our depreciation. Let's load in our SG&A expenses. And now we have a view of our P&L for this budget cycle. And we can actually go through and filter, say, on particular months. So say we have January through December. We see there's a little spike here in June, July. We can filter there. And then we can even drill into this P&L. So if we're looking at our sales coming from our indoor department, we can click on that and drill right down into the details. So indoor sales to discount stores. And then we have all of our discount store sales with our different products. You can do some detective work and see where those values are coming from. All right, so that's Board in a nutshell. As you saw, Board's very flexible and dynamic from a budgeting perspective, but it is a corporate performance management solution, so it can be used for a lot more applications than just budgeting. It can be used for sales analysis. It can be used for cross-selling analysis, merchandise intelligence. From a supply chain management perspective, it could be used for demand planning. It could be used for integrated capacity planning. It can be used for developing, say, supply chain dashboards and KPIs. From an HR perspective, you could use it for HR performance management applications, skills mapping, HR dashboards and KPIs. From a finance and controlling perspective, it could be used for just financial reporting. It could be used for cost and profitability analysis. It could be used for compliance or developing strategy maps, balanced scorecards. From an operations perspective, it could be used for capacity planning, materials management, and some other examples could be quality intelligence or your IT scorecard. So why Board's different from the budgeting and analytics perspective? One is the integration. It's an all-in-one product. It combines all features and functionalities needed to build a complete BI and CPM solution. The pervasiveness, it has the unique ability to adopt in various departments, business units, and divisions, as you saw by that list of different applications. Simplicity, it's designed to be a business user tool, so it's self-service, so it enables the user to interact intuitively with the data and make in-depth analysis with simplicity, and also speed. So any application can be built with the drag and drop functionality in Board, and the configuration of data-aware objects, offering an unmatched time to solution. For more information on Corporate Renaissance Group budgeting and planning solutions, such as Budget Maestro, Board, or Adaptive Planning, I encourage you to give me a call or send me an email. It's important to understand, your size of organization, what type of planning and budgeting process you have, and the level of complexity, and just sort of figuring out what the right solution is for you. Thanks, and have a great day.